Good morning. Thank you, Catherine, for the invitation to be here today, and thanks to all of you for the opportunity to speak with you here for a few minutes this morning. As noted, my name is Amy Hess, and I am one of 6 executive assistant directors for the FBI, and specifically my portfolio includes, as noted, all of our criminal investigations, our cyber operations, our international operations worldwide in more than 80 overseas field offices, and our response to crisis events or crisis response, and our victim services. However, of all of those things, even though I try really hard to split my time equitably across that portfolio, one thing in particular, as you are all too well aware, occupies the most of it, and that is our response to cyber attacks. They have become more and more prevalent in every investigation and everything we do, and we have seen the threat evolving and growing every day. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about how the FBI is thinking about those threats and some of the things I think we can do together globally to fight them. Now, while the threat may be constantly evolving, the FBI's approach to the threat is, I think, consistent with our experience, our authorities, and our history. In fact, the FBI was created in 1908 in response to changing new technology at the time, the automobile. This new technology showed great promise and the allure of great opportunities for both law-abiding citizens and for criminals. The ability of criminals to easily travel across state lines drove the demand for a federal law enforcement agency with the ability to pursue bad actors regardless of geographic boundaries. Investigating crime and national security incidents and assisting victims is therefore not new to us. We've used our field-centric model to bring down dangerous criminal enterprises, foil terrorist plots, and disrupt rings of foreign spies for more than 110 years. And in our cyber efforts, we've applied the same investigative expertise. We've called out nation-state actors for hacking into U.S. businesses and stealing intellectual property. We've taken down global botnets. We've unmasked cyber criminals who thought they could remain anonymous. We've successfully extradited those who hack for their countries or to line their own pockets, or for both. And I think our unique experience, authorities, and responsibilities puts the FBI at the center of our government's efforts to combat cyber threats. Now, I know this audience is intimately familiar with cyber threats that we face, so I won't spend a lot of time on that, but what I would like to talk about is some of the trends we're seeing. For starters, we've seen the emergence of a hybrid threat, as we call it, or nation-state actors who are hiring criminals to achieve their national security objectives, using ransomware and other hackers' tools to do so. In December of last year, the Department of Justice indicted 2 Chinese nationals affiliated with a hacking group operating in China. The group, APT-10, was associated with the Chinese government's Ministry of State Security, or MSS. The members of this group conducted major computer intrusion campaigns targeting U.S. government agencies and private companies, both in the U.S. and around the world, stealing intellectual property and confidential business information. The hackers' work crossed over traditional criminal and national security lines to achieve China's intelligence mission. Now, China's goal is simple: to replace the U.S. as the world's leading superpower. And they did and will continue to break societal laws and norms to get there. In fact, we've seen an increasing level of sophistication in their techniques, tactics, and procedures. But going toe-to-toe with China in terms of the cyber threat is Russia. We're seeing similar hybrid threats coming from there as well, but with a slightly different objective. Just this past October, the Department of Justice indicted 7 officers from Russia's main intelligence directorate, or GRU, for computer hacking, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and money laundering. These individuals conducted the hacking to retaliate against world anti-doping officials who publicly exposed the Russian government's sponsorship of doping by Russian athletes. The hacks were in line with other activity we've seen from Russia and were part of a disinformation campaign to undermine the regulatory organizations, and spread false narratives about other athletes and organizations. These activities moved well beyond acceptable government intelligence operations and broke traditional norms and the law by using cyber resources in the way that they did. And in November of last year, the FBI and Department of Justice indicted 2 Iranian national criminal actors for deploying ransomware that crippled hospitals, local governments, and other public institutions to the tune of $30 million in losses to the U.S. These criminals infected data networks with what was called SamSam ransomware in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. That ransomware infected over 230 victim networks worldwide. As you can see, in indicting foreign nationals from China, Russia, and Iran, we're sending a message that we will do whatever is in our power to hold these people accountable, even when those indicted are not immediately accessible to answer the charges. We will work to expose them and to limit their future criminal activity. Now, in many cases, the U.S. government issues Interpol red notices for cyber criminals' arrest and extradition to the United States. That limits their ability to travel. And if they do attempt to travel, we are more likely to catch them and to bring them to justice. For example, in February of 2018, the alleged creator of the Keynote botnet, a Russian national named Peter Levashov, was extradited from Spain. And in March of last year, Yevgeny Nikulin of Moscow made his initial appearance in U.S. federal court following his extradition from the Czech Republic to face allegations that he illegally accessed computers belonging to LinkedIn, to Dropbox, and FormSpring. Now, this seems to happen regularly. The U.S. has bilateral extradition treaties with over 100 countries, and we also, in coordination with our international partners, work to dismantle the criminal infrastructure that is used to conduct cybercrime. Our foreign partners are key to those efforts. You may recall in July of 2017, the Alphabet Hansa market takedowns were one of the most sophisticated and coordinated efforts to date on the part of law enforcement across the globe. U.S. law enforcement worked with foreign partners to shut down the Alphabet darknet market, causing criminal users and vendors to flock to the Hansa market. And concurrently, Dutch law enforcement worked to shut down the Hansa market once those individuals moved to that site. In addition to those measures, attribution allows the United States government to take coordinated action to impose costs on those who violate our laws and threaten our national security. If we're able to attribute malicious cyber activity to a nation state, it enables policymakers to consider using all tools available to impose those costs. And that includes sanctions through the U.S. Treasury, the Commerce Department's Entity List designation, and U.S. Trade Representative action. So while we can't always apprehend subjects, or at least quickly or easily, we will keep at it and we will keep disrupting their lives and activity. We have a long memory and an important responsibility to the victims. That brings me to a really important point, and it's the reason why I continually speak to groups like this audience here today. It's because we can't lose sight of the fact that the victims of malicious cyber activity are not only governments and companies, but people. It could very well be you, your company, your agency, your city, your country, who are the victims of an attack. And in each of those examples, people are affected. The FBI has a long history and physical presence throughout the country and the world working with victims. So I want to ensure you know how the FBI can support you, your organization, your agency, your company, if you're ever in the unfortunate position of being the victim. Of course, for starters, we always encourage companies to plan ahead for cybersecurity incidents. Every company should have an incident response plan ready and practiced. Companies should develop a relationship with the FBI and local law enforcement prior to an incident. That provides individuals with a dedicated FBI point of contact who they can call in the event of an emergency. Now, we realize companies all have concerns about competitive advantage in the marketplace, and the loss of investor confidence or public perception can be extremely damaging to your reputation and bottom line. We also realize after a company has been the victim of a cyber attack, they don't want to be victimized a second time by the perceived burden of an investigation. We understand that the FBI is committed to minimizing this disruption to the company and your employees, and we want to do anything possible to protect your privacy. We'll work with attorneys, general counsel, and others to address any concerns a company may have. And in using lessons learned from previous investigations, we've developed tools to quickly identify and address cyber situations. As we've seen in many instances, an intrusion that may seem insignificant or small, after further analysis, it can spiral into a larger attack. Our assistance starts with notification, but it evolves into a relationship of confidence and trust that allows us to work more collaboratively and effectively with victims. We don't want our first interaction to be after an attack has occurred. That's not the time that we need to be getting to know each other and establishing that trust. Even if you're never the victim or have not been to date, there are so many things we can mutually gain from each other. The FBI, through our field offices, routinely provides classified briefings to our private sector partners to warn them of risks and provide guidance for mitigating threats. And in those briefings, we discuss ongoing malicious cyber activity that you and others, our partners, are seeing, which broadens our knowledge of specific threats and helps better define gaps in our knowledge. We don't have a monopoly on cyber threat intelligence. We must all work together to develop information sharing relationships to successfully understand and combat today's threat. Just think about the expertise and the authorities here in this room alone. Together, we have the ability to more fully understand, combat, and preempt the cyber threat. For those of you who reside or work domestically, the FBI has 56 field offices and 356 satellite offices throughout the United States. And in many of those locations, we have cyber task forces with members from different federal agencies, state and local entities as well. We also have cyber action teams, response teams that we deploy to provide forensic services and expertise on how to address cyber incidents that occur on company networks. But our people are perhaps our most important cyber tool. I would encourage you to please get to know them. I encourage you to reach out to your local field office and establish the relationship and information sharing now. And for those of you who are visiting from abroad, we have a network of FBI cyber attachés working out of our embassies overseas. They work directly with our foreign counterparts in the host country, and we're developing and strengthening those relationships every day. We've even embedded cyber agents with our international counterparts in strategic locations to help us build trust with key partners around the globe. Because as we all know, cyber is a global issue. And of course, anyone can report a cyber incident to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at IC3.gov. In fact, as just reported yesterday, over $2.7 billion in losses were reported to the IC3 in 2018. And our recovery asset team was able to assist using the financial fraud kill chain to recapture $192 million. To learn more about IC3 and its efforts, I'd highly encourage you to visit our website at fbi.gov and see the top story today. In closing, the FBI, I think, has some exciting new tech and cyber-focused projects and facilities on the horizon. We are increasingly focused on hiring, retaining, and training our workforce of the future. Our focus for the future is finding new ways to work together and take full advantage of intelligence and technology that's available to us to combat this threat. We've got to be focused on sharing the right amount of information at the right time to enable all of us to use our capabilities and our authorities to prevent crime and defend our nation. I look forward to being a part of that conversation with all of you, and thank you for your time today.